Hey everybody, it's Chris from TGIK Games, and today we're going to carry on with our brainstorming. And before, we've just done brainstorming at random, and now some of these ideas have made it to the next stage where I wrote down notes in my little booklet that I carry around with me everywhere, and I'm going to transfer those notes from my handwritten notebook to the digital form. So, the four games, and I'm going to take you guys along for the ride. So the four games we're going to be looking at are a timeline game, which is all about time travel, and there's going to be a little twist at the end. There's a first-person, this one's actually was written down as first-person tower defense, but it's actually going to be first-person base defense. That's going to be the first one we work on. There is last line of defense. I don't know why I called it that, but the idea is that there are teams of players on either side, and they're firing missiles at each other, but there are gravity spots along the way that are going to alter the path of those missiles, and players can put shields up and whatnot, but we will get to that one. The other one that we will do will be a deck builder, where the idea is, well, we'll get there. I'm not going to try and describe it briefly. I'm just going to jump into getting the notes down for the first-person base defense. So, we're going to start with the experience. And something that I've been toying with a lot recently is starting very early with the experience I want players to have rather than the mechanic I want to build. Because that's the way I've built a lot of our games, and I think I need to expand my horizons. So we're just going to outline the experience. With base defense, I want it to be a bit frantic and a bit tactical. Players, it'll be a co-op. Co-op versus an alien race, maybe. An alien race, and we are trying to defend our base. And I need to make this a 150 so you can see what I'm doing. How about that? Okay, so what do I have here in my notes? I've got base defense. Okay, so there are decks of cards represented by tokens on the board, and I realize it sounds like a mechanic, but it actually does have to do with the experience, so stick with me. So decks of cards. Oh, let me give you a little bit more context about the board represented by tiles, and the tiles are laid out as part of setup by the players, which is a bit redundant to say set up by the players, but what I mean is players will pick the kinds of tiles they want to build their base, and the board is born. Okay. And the idea is that players say they set up their board, which is their base. There's going to be a bombardment phase, and that can be adjusted by difficulty, level. If players don't want to use the bombardment phase, they don't have to. But the idea is that we're in this base, we're all working together, and this enemy race is in space, and they're going to bombard our base. And maybe you can think of this as a little bit inspired by Mu 2, or there's a new strategy game. Actually, no, it's the remake of Mu 2. That's come out. I watch a lot of it on YouTube, and a ship is in orbit and it bombards the planet, and the planet gets some of the buildings get destroyed. Well, similar thinking, the base is going to get knocked around, and there will be openings. So a bombardment phase will be designed to hurt the base, start the players off with other things to deal with. Other things being, so players will be able to repair damaged things, structures. No, we're not going to use things. Structures, comms, defenses, I guess, defenses or structures, but you know, we're spitballing. We're stream of consciousness here. Repair damaged structures, comms, defenses. To start the game. The idea is I don't want players to just sit there and wait for the enemies to arrive. I actually want them to have to prioritize, okay, well, the enemy's coming in on this side of the base and we have damage on the other side of the base. Well, what happens if the enemies show up on the other side? I want there to be more decisions early in the game that make it interesting and not just scripted play, because scripted play to me is just awful. When it takes an extra turn or two to actually get into the game, it's kind of like I equate it to the first week or two of a school year, or the first week or two of a job, where it's the same thing wherever you go, or it's the same thing. It's just a lot of review at school. It doesn't. There's no just like hook me in and pull me in. We have lots of time to figure this out. Well, let me figure this out from step one. That's the way I like to play. It's the way I like to design games as well. Right. So bombardment phase. Okay. What the heck is going on here? That's not what I want. That's what I want. Okay. So back to the player experience that we're going for. The board represented by tiles. There's a bombardment phase. Players are going to have pawns. And these pawns will represent officers. So the players will be officers, and the officers will be able to give orders. Soldiers. Are soldiers represented by cards? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, that's a mechanic thing that I haven't really thought about yet. So players will have pawns. So players have their pawns set up in the base. They can move from tile to tile. And you can give orders because you're officers. If a player gets killed, they will respawn as a new officer until the officers run out. So the idea is that I think this will go towards the end, like the lose the game trigger. When players can no longer rejoin the game, they lose. Or, better stated, when the first instance of a player not being able to respawn occurs, the game is over and we all lost. Because I don't want to have players sit there, and I'd rather just call the game over at that point in time. And of course, that is all changeable. Let's see, what else do we have here? Players have pawns, they move them around. When a pawn gets to an area, oh, okay. So here's the kind of the core of the experience, the thing that got me into this idea. Players are going to be moving their pawns around. There are also these tokens moving around that represent decks. These decks will be off to the side, and those decks will be a small stack or maybe a large stack, but a stack nevertheless of bad guys. For players to be able to see what that deck of cards is, they need to go into the area where that token is located. So, players will move their pawns to an area in order to get access to a deck of enemies. Now, what can you do when you get to that deck of enemies? You can fight it. You can report it. So in this, there's a fog of war, kind of. We're going to call it that. And the fog of war basically means that if a player or area has full communication, then all players communication. Oh, there's how about then all players can see what you are fighting in your region, in your tile. Let's just call it tile so we don't use area 1,000 times in one sentence. If a player area has full communication, then all players can see what you are fighting in your area. So in other words, you get to an area, you have full comms, you get to turn over all the cards in the deck, and you get to fight them however you want. Now here's the thing. Players will have enemies. They are strong and weak against. How are we doing on time? Oh, okay. Players will have enemies they are strong and weak against. So there will be deployment. This means there will be deployment strats involved and tactics to consider. So, okay. Players will also be able to deploy soldiers. So there will be an element of NPC play, which I have to say I'm adding a lot, like in all the games. A lot of the games that I've been thinking of recently, there's NPC activity. And if you've been watching the Necromancer series, there's NPC play in there. There's also same thing in Creep Spread. There's NPC activity there. Yeah, there's I think what I need to do is I need to come up with a basic idea of how NPC play can work, and I need to build structures off of that to make NPCs so I can apply it in different ways to different games. But that's a big generalized topic that we don't really need to get into right now. Maybe we'll make it a podcast topic someday. There will be an element of NPC play. Okay, so moving. Let's go back. That means there's players will have. Oh, okay, right. So a player gets to an area. They can look at this deck. If there's full comms, which we're assuming in this case, you can turn it over, and everybody can see what the enemies are. So at that point, if there's an officer or 2 or 3 or whoever's in the game in reserve, they can then deploy they can deploy assets to more easily handle that particular region of the board. So players will be able to make better decisions if they are able to see more cards. Now, what happens if everything isn't all peaches and cream? Well, if player or area has damaged comms, they may only be able to show the card they are fighting. And, yep. Or they may, no, let's see. They may only be able to verbally tell players what they are fighting, what they see, or what they are fighting. Well, no. Okay, no. We're just gonna make a really general rule right now. General rule: whatever a player is fighting will be face up. That just cleans up a lot of issues. Then you don't have any. If that enemy rolls a 6 and I roll a 5 against it, then everybody knows what's actually going on. But if you do any kind of face down without doing a GM in the game, I don't want to. The card you're fighting is going to be face up. General rule. End of story. Let's see. What else? There may only be able to verbally tell players. Okay. And what else? What did I write down? Let's go back to the book. Players will have enemies. Yep, we wrote that down. More than one player can see a deck at a time. Oh, okay. Players in the same area will have access to the same cards. And they can make tactical decisions based on what they see. Okay. Let's see. No comms. Okay. No, reveal target only. Verbal comms, tell, no show. Okay. And visual comms, show targets and 2 others. Full comms, show everything. Visual comms. What would be the difference between visual comms and no comms? You could say something like, there's a camera mounted on my body armor, and you can see through the camera, and maybe if a player in the game, a player says, okay, well, I've got 6 baddies coming down. I'm saying this into my comms. Okay, so through my body armor camera, you can see that you can see the person I'm shooting at, and you can see the 2 other bad guys that are coming up behind him. And then in theory, I'm trying to tell you everything else that I can see, but what I don't know is that my comms are down. Maybe they got damaged or something, or the link in between where I'm fighting and where the base is, the center of the base, nobody can hear me. So that could be, yeah, I think that's a reasonable. I've talked myself into it, so we'll call it 4 levels of comms. We've got no comms, verbal, visual, and this visual means can see the dude, the critter, the dude. I don't even know if this is going to be people or if it's going to be some random alien race. The critter. The thing, no, we're not going to say thing. I don't know. The baddie. You can see the baddie and 2 others, but that's it. Visual and full. And I think full is self-explanatory. Okay. How are we doing on time? Okay. 4 levels of comms. Okay. So, what is this? Bombardment? Oh, we talked about bombardment. Full comms did that. Players are generic officers, and when they die, they respawn as other officers. We wrote that. If there are officers left, they come back as soldiers. We talked about that. Theme: story is a planetary capital building is being bombarded by hostile aliens. The board setup begins with the bombardment of the base. The board setup would be the board gets set up, and then there's a bombardment. There are projectile shields. Oh, okay. So now we're going to get a little bit into, let's see, shields. Shields, there are different types. There are projectile. There are personnel. No? No? Apparently not. Yep. I never said I was a good speller. Okay. Projectile is essentially high velocity stuff. I know I said I was going to use more descriptive words, but I'm running out of time, and, well, stuff works right now. And this is low velocity stuff, which is a fancy way of saying people or aliens or baddies, whatever you want to call them. Okay, next note. I'm not going to get into anything other than shields. I mean, quite honestly, this is just writing down notes to get them in a digital format, so I'll worry about details like shields later. Need to work out a bit of luck into combat. Yeah, so the dreaded combat system. Combat system. What do I know right now? I know I would like to add an element of luck. I don't know what that is yet, but it'll have one, hopefully. The board will have regions set up by the players. These regions will have cover scores. Maybe we can use tiles. That maybe is we will be using tiles. Regions will have a cover score, which will act as a bonus to players or enemies if they take over the position. Okay, that sounds good. Tile cover score / bonuses. Bonuses. The idea is that different tiles will provide different defense / cover scores. these can be used by whoever inhabits, that's not the right word, or occupies said tile. Players can set up defensive traps, but after first use, enemy will send specialists to take it out. Ah, okay, cool. We're getting a little bit into the AI. Okay, so there are traps. However, the enemy will get smart and send specialists to disarm these traps. And there's a lot of AI work that needs to go into this. Now, this could really this could break the game. It could change the game. It could send the game in umpteen different directions of whatever the end product is going to be, what this AI is going to do. And I don't know, I've never built an AI system before, so I'm not exactly certain what I want this AI system to do. But I have ideas, and this is one of them. So wish us luck. Let's see. No, we did that page. Players can set up defensive traps. Enemies will send specialists to take it out. Players will need to be allowed. Oh, players will need to be allowed to counter the specialist, but the mechanic is sound. Okay. Players will need to be able to mitigate the specialist. And the idea here is I don't want players to set up a trap, have the trap go off, and then they know in 4 turns some specialist is going to show up and disarm it. That adds a definitive timer to the game or to an aspect of the game, and I want players to. I don't want that in the game. I don't want, for something as chaotic as battle, I don't want players to have something that they can absolutely rely on like this that seems like it should be chaotic. And also there's the aspect of how is the AI going to handle a trap? Don't know yet. So I certainly don't want to make it a static thing. Oh, are we at the end? Oh, how about that? I think it's perfect timing. Look at that, 23 minutes. Yeah. Players can set up yeah, that's it. Okay. Good job, everybody. We made it here. Check that off. Yeah. Okay. Well, we're going to put in a cut here, and we are going to work on the next game. So we'll see you in the next video.